to another episode of Haven of Horror. God damn it, Austin. This is episode 17, I believe. We're discussing Hereditary and The Witch. Welcome back, Dan Torrey. Always glad to have you here, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
He's going to give us like a thought-provoking essay, and I'm just going to be like, it was a good movie. And also, welcome back, Austin. We've missed you, buddy.
Yeah, you guys dragged me back, crawling and screaming.
He's crying tears of joy, just wiping away all the
pain.
Yeah, whatever. So tonight we're just gonna kind of jump straight into it. I don't have a lot of preamble, other than Milton and I did do our Buffy season 2 discussion. If you'd like to check that out, it's in the channel. It'll be in the channel description after the video. So with Hereditary, I believe I'm gonna have Dan talk about Hereditary first because you like this movie quite a bit. We all do.
Oh yeah.
So tell us about Hereditary.
So Hereditary's a horror movie directed by Ari Aster, and the basic plot is there's sort of this family that we meet at the beginning of the story. The grandmother or mother of our main character, which is Toni Collette's character, passes away, and it's sort of like the fallout of that, and you get to see like this family. There's something going on with them. They're all very isolated, and there's a lot of unspoken things between them. Eventually, as the film goes on, you figure out that the grandmother was involved in this satanic cult, and there's sort of like this this ritual that they did to have the one of the kings of hell inhabit the body of one of Toni Collette's children. So she has a lot of conflicted feelings about even being a mother, and it's a movie thematically about like a family that hates each other, and it's really interesting.
Well, it's interesting because I think both of these movies kind of have like people in this that are terrible parents.
Yes.
Or, like want to be better parents.
Yeah.
Good combo, Austin. For anyone who doesn't know, Austin put together all of the movies that we have reviewed, the combos.
Well, it's funny because I just put them together because it's like two new big horror directors since their first film. But yeah, they actually do kind of maybe not parallel, but like they do have some similarities. It's kind of interesting.
Out of the 3 picks, you've given us one good that we've had so far.
Whatever. That's because you guys picked badly.
Hey, we just spun a wheel, okay? A Quiet Place was actually pretty good. If you guys haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's pretty good.
You guys got to watch Blade, so get the fuck out of here. But anyway, this is under Hereditary.
But yeah, this is very much about a family who kind of hates each other, and then of course it's also very much about grief. To the point of the grief scenes almost made me uncomfortable just because of how good they are, and I'm just like, stop! You're too good at this.
Yeah, the most horrifying scene in the entire movie is because the daughter dies in the film, and Toni Collette's like screaming when she finds the body.
Yeah, when she's like on the floor and the dad is like holding her.
Yeah.
And
the way it's cut, like it could have come off as like funny because it like just cuts straight to her just like screeching, but her performance is so good that like it's really powerful.
It is. She in many ways carries this movie. I think you put like an actress of any lesser quality, the movie would still be good, but it wouldn't be like remembered as well remembered as it is because of her.
Not at all. She knocks it out of the park, and thank goodness she is as good as she is, considering how much screen time we give to the character and that we need to give to her. Considering the theming of, the idea of hereditary sin or fault or something like that seems to get passed down from like generation to generation. At least is my interpretation of like some of the theming here, just based on especially the title.
Oh yeah, I think that's definitely a thing. I mean, like she passes down a bunch of different like sort of burdens to her family. Like her kids clearly have mental health problems just like she did, and like she says her brother did, and that seems to be a thing that runs in her side of the family, and the family all kind of blames her for the distance between them because of how like she let the mother get her hooks into the kids, at least the second one, and all of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think it definitely is about like what parents pass on to their kids, from generation to generation, not just genetically, but like the trauma that they experience, how that affects them, that sort of stuff.
Hello, Noah. Good to see you as always, and you as well, Josh. Pretty regular viewers over on the channel.
Yep.
So we appreciate that.
There's definitely a heavy matriarchal element to this, certainly.
Absolutely.
Where, like, the dominant female voice, it's like the best stuff can come from that, but also some of the worst stuff as well, just based on, how you were reared and, what your focus is. If you're focusing on trying to bring up, a devil, essentially, chances are it's going to affect everyone else in your family. Considering we foreshadow certainly the whole, insanity and possession thing, like early on when she references, the idea of like insanity within the family because of the many different attempts that I think Tony Glutt's brother had.
Well, that's one of the best things about this movie is the attention to detail. Like, you notice it more and more on rewatches, but like even stuff like you'll see like just random like footprints around the house of like cultists that like are like clearly like spying on them and stuff, and like though because at the end of the film there's a bunch of nude cultists at the house, and like people show up like in the background of scenes throughout the movie.
Yeah, one of my favorite instances of that is there's a scene where the son is sort of in his room smoking a bowl, and he like opens the window to blow the smoke out, and the camera shifts to like an outside perspective, and just off screen you can hear and see like cold breath in the wind, like watching him. And that's one of the things I noticed on a repeat viewing because it happens like quickly. And there's also like when they're at the funeral, there's like people that give them like weird looks, and then if you like notice later on in the film, they're the same people that are nude at the house, so they've been like involved ever since like the very early scenes of the movie. I don't know, it's really cool.
Yeah, well, it's funny because a big complaint this film got, at least that I've heard since it came out, is that the cult stuff just kind of like pops up out of nowhere at the end. But I think like maybe people missed stuff, and then when you go on repeat viewings, like it's like, oh yeah, it's all throughout the film. They're setting everything up.
That's why I think
There's so much foreshadowing.
Yeah, I think a repeat viewing definitely allows you to see the puzzle pieces. Like once you see the picture at the end, you're able to kind of see how it was built piece by piece as the movie goes on.
Like a model house, yeah.
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 I see what you did there. Yeah, I mean, I remember the first time I watched this because I had been hearing about it, but I'm not usually a guy that watches like possession films. I find most of them are pretty typical and like boring, and I can see what's going to happen. This movie shocked me the first time I watched it, and then like in a good way. So I got to give it props for that. It obviously loses some of that, on repeat viewings because you know what's coming. But I did kind of find it a little bit funny, and maybe this is just my sense of humor, that he like his sister dies, and then he just like goes home, leaves the body in the car, and just goes to bed.
Yeah. I think he was just like so in shock at the time that he like didn't know how to say anything about it to his mom. Because you get that feeling when he's like standing outside the bedroom, like while she's screaming, like he wants to go and like talk to her about it, but he can't,
Yeah, and you get that scene later where she screams at him for like not having the responsibility to do anything about it.
Yeah.
There's an element to his character where we consistently see him wanting to reject reality, or like look at something to like smoking pot as a means to kind of like affect how he perceives things. We see at the end him just trying to like convince himself that her mother cutting her head off is just a dream. Him also not wanting to accept responsibility at all, or sometimes just counter the accusations of lack of responsibility by saying that the mother is responsible. Stuff like that.
there's a lot of finger pointing, and I think like the weed smoking is definitely like a crutch for him that I think goes back to the fact that his mother didn't really want him because she was afraid that her mother would turn her firstborn son into this possessed devil, like she tried to do with her brother and her father before. So
funny thing is that probably would have happened, and it did eventually happen.
yeah. Yeah.
I agree. Noah says that he prefers The Witch, but he thinks Hereditary is scarier. Hereditary is probably outright scarier, and it has more like disturbing scenes. But The Witch is just more consistent. Like,
I think it depends on like what gets you personally, because each thing has their own trigger for certain people, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the best things about this film is it's like you'll get like a 20-minute stretch, and then it'll be like boom, something shocking happens, and then like 20 minutes of dealing with that, and then like boom, the next big thing happens. So like you're always just kind of moving forward like that. Like you get the start with the daughter's death, and then like we have to deal with that, and then after that, I think you get like the cult stuff starts to creep in.
There's always like a slow burn and kind of like rising tension behind these things. Like some of it does come as a shock, but some of the scarier stuff is, the stuff that you're aware of, but you only get like the full grasp of it after it's lingered there for a while, which is I think what makes the decapitation scene, the aftermath, I think, such a brilliantly shot thing.
There's a lot of stuff like that in this movie, in terms of like scares that I really enjoy, and again, noticed on repeat viewings. I didn't see this movie in the theater the first time, so maybe it was like very apparent to people that saw it there. But I watched it on sort of a smaller screen, and there's a scene where the son is like down in the living room towards the end of the movie after the mother's been possessed, and there's a shot like close up on his face, and like behind him you can see the mother like on the ceiling like looking down on him, and I didn't notice that the first time I watched it, and like the second time I was like, oh my god, there she is.
Yeah, there's definitely a thing about like aspect ratio where if you see something smaller you're able to see a bit more, whereas big stuff in your peripheral can get overtaken.
Well,
Sure.
Yeah, there's also the part where he's like in bed, and it's just a shot of the room, and she's like hiding in the corner, like the top corner. And yeah, if you like see it, you see it, and you're like, holy shit. But like if you don't, it's like whatever. You're still so drawn into what's happening.
Austin must see all those little details then, because he's got a tiny ass TV.
Oh, Josh says Hereditary made me feel dirty. What do you mean, man?
But yeah, I did notice the one that Dan mentioned, her like hiding up in the corner, and that shit in film always freaks me out. No matter how bad the movie is, if you do that thing where like there's something in the corner but they don't draw attention to it, if you notice it, you notice it. Always manages to freak me out just because like it's unnatural to the frame.
Yeah.
So I appreciate them doing that, because I really like that little attention to detail.
Oh, Tony Collette turns into Spider-Man, as Josh says.
Yeah.
There's another very interesting thing about this film. There's a through line of Greek tragedy that's very present throughout this. I remember actually I was fortunate enough to actually see a Greek play actually being performed in my college, and it's one of the things that I kept noticing within the framing of the shots of how similar it is to a Greek tragedy, not just in what is being said in the classroom, but also the sets, the model designs, and even the end shot as well is very reminiscent of blocking and posturing with actors and whatnot.
Yeah, they do a good job of making it look like it's all, or like not all of it, obviously, but there's a lot of shots that like really emphasize the whole model home thing. Like you both start and end with that, and there's just shots throughout where you get like a whole room, and it's like that, like you're looking into a model house. And it's just really
like
interestingly
that.
shot.
Yeah, I agree. I really like that as a framing device, because it's like, from the very beginning of the movie, they're trapped in like this life that's been sort of constructed for them that they're pawns in, and they really don't have any power to change anything about it. The cult already has them in their grasp as soon as the mother dies,
Mm-hmm.
And I like that, Annie also works on those things, and she feels like like she needs to be able to make these little worlds she can control, and everything else in her life kind of spins out of control at the same time. It's cool stuff.
Like fate kind of frames its own play.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and we are the players in life. We just it goes into an idea of, is it truly a tragedy if you don't have choice, which is definitely an interesting idea that I'm honestly still not sure how to answer. Is it tragedy if you don't have choice, then you just see events play out, or is it more tragic because there is no choice?
See,
Yeah.
I think with things like that, it's more tragic because you never had a choice in the beginning.
But then what's the point of worrying if things are just going to happen anyway?
Well, but your protagonist doesn't know that.
True, but we are the audience. For us, it's a very meta thing where we're clearly the audience, and Ari Aster knows that and wants us to make us feel like we're kind of in it. We're supposed to be outsiders to this event, making us think, can we insert ourselves in this situation, or should we just completely disassociate? Like how the characters want to disassociate from reality constantly and want to shift blame.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I just maybe I have that hard time of getting just like putting myself into the movie, but like when I'm watching the movie, I'm just watching this character and like seeing what he wants to do. And if it's a tragedy like that he has no choice, I feel bad for that character because he isn't aware that he has no choice. Like I don't know, you just made it sound really complicated.
I think it's an interesting detail. Maybe it's projection, but something I think about constantly because the film quite literally says it through the classroom teacher.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're wrong about that in the sense that Annie's character like thing that like the burden she carries throughout the whole movie is like the choices she made as a parent and like how many of them were poor and like her kids don't let that let her live that down even though it's unsaid. Like she carries that burden with her still even though everyone like acts like everything's fine and they like have dinner together and put on the show that there's no tension between them, but it's always underlying. And she thought she could just kind of run away from that, and so did the kids too. They kind of go into their own little private worlds to escape from confronting it.
But that's on medication all the time too, so there's
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean, even they're very isolated. Like, she goes out to the movies by herself all the time, and the husband's just basically like, "Ah, cool." Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't try to like go with her because I think he inherently realizes that like she needs time away from him, but they don't really spend all that much time like together at all in the movie, and whenever they're together, they kind of are at each other's throats, and
He always likes to shut conversation down because he knows where it leads, and he doesn't.
Yeah.
He wants to avoid conflict at all costs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's like the one trying to keep everything together, but it's all falling apart.
Yeah.
I think it's probably just a repeated pattern of constantly doing that eventually just leads to this explosion. It's probably been just how he deals with his relationships in general.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. Like, many of these characters thought they could just, run away from the associations they have with their parents as well. Like, Annie thought she could just, forget the fact that her mother was this like crazy devil worshiper person and move forward with her life, but that wasn't possible, unfortunately. You always have to kind of deal with the hand that life deals you, I suppose.
So come to terms with it and try to, adapt.
Yeah.
Josh says that it was a great framing device, talking about the model house thing. I also think this movie really preys on people who have children and people who are scared of shadows. Also, originally, the initial cut of the film, it was revealed that the husband used to be Annie's therapist.
Oh, really?
That's very interesting. Although, I don't know. Would that have enhanced the film if we had seen that?
Well, it's definitely like, I know in the therapist profession, that's like highly unethical. You're not supposed to do that, so.
I think it would have also added another layer of their relationship because, like, she's
Yeah,
marrying the
definitely.
person who is supposed to cure her, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
It may be why he always puts distance between him and her, because he did it habitually within their professional relationship, but when it bled together, it just distorted and perverted things over time. Maybe.
Yeah.
I like this movie. It's very detailed.
Yeah.
I like this movie. It's not my favorite or anything, but I do like what it's doing quite a bit. The little girl also. So I don't know anything about like what people speculate about this movie or anything, but is the idea that she is possessed at the beginning because she's really fucking weird. Like,
Yeah, she's supposed
Yes,
to
she's
be.
possessed. Yeah.
Yeah, because like the king of hell that they summon, Payman, he needs to be in the body of a male host, and Annie wouldn't let the king's like spirit go into her first kid, but the mother did that with the second one, and it like made her all like disfigured in the way that she is and socially awkward because like it's that king's spirit in the wrong body.
It's like, I don't want to be trapped in these women. I want a man's body.
Yeah, like he like in the film they mentioned that like the grandmother would like breastfeed the young little girl when she was a baby, and then like all that stuff started like happening to her. So I would imagine the ritual involved her like breastfeeding, and like because they call her like the queen at the end when there's like the two pictures of them. There's the king, and the grandmother is supposed to be the queen.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Kind of
well, you get
from
that like
grandmother to
placemat because her name is Charlie, and there's like a placemat that was made for this Charles when it was supposed to be like they thought it would be a boy because they needed like the second child to be a boy to put him in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting too because when you see the kind of demon guy, you see like a drawing of him, and he's holding the like heads of 3 decapitated women.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course you have like the daughter, Toni Collette, and the grandmother. They're all decapitated throughout the film, and their heads are like all there in the final scene when the son becomes possessed.
Yeah, all that stuff is really cool. I a while ago I forget all the like a lot of it off the top of my head now, but when I saw this movie for the first time, I was looking up into like the actual Christian mythology surrounding this stuff, and it's pretty on point from what I remember in terms of like Payman is one of the real kings of hell, and he has like a specific role and all that stuff. So
Yeah, like apparently he's, according to the Goetia and Wire, apparently he's like subservient to Lucifer almost directly, at least according to those texts.
Yeah.
In that sort of occultist kind of thing. There's also like references to, like Mesopotamian mythology with that as well, and there's a lot of history behind this character. And occasionally makes an appearance in video games for whatever reason. So
interesting.
That doesn't surprise me. Video games pull from all kinds of mythologies all the time.
It's mostly anime stuff and Japanese stuff. So there you go.
Scare off Austin again.
Where's my hang up button?
We
ever
did
heard
the
of
Vampire
Shin
Hunter
Megami
D
Tensei?
movies, and Austin was like, I can't come on the show anymore.
But no, there's a very rich history for this sort of thing. It also goes a bit into as well the witch, but in a different blend of that sort of occultist history kind of thing, with like Enochian language and text and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with this film, it obviously deals with mental issues quite a bit as well. What do you guys think? Is there actually a demon? And I might have missed something, or is it all in this like family's head?
Oh, there's definitely like a demon.
If we're to take what we see seriously, and sometimes we can't. Sometimes we're immersed into the world that the characters see, and maybe then it is in our heads. But to this point, it doesn't matter. People still die. I think though that there is. I think this is like elevated supernatural horror where Payman really does come into play.
Yeah, I think in the
see
plot
people
of the
flying
movie,
and stuff.
yeah, I think in the plot of the movie, it's definitely there, but you're onto something in the sense that I think the demon is supposed to be a metaphor for passing down mental illness from like generation to generation. Like the grandmother was the first one that manifested it, then her daughter tried to like get away from that, and she still like has anxiety issues. She goes to the group therapy sessions. and then the son dissociates from reality, like you were mentioning earlier, and the Charlie is like socially awkward and all that sort of stuff. So it's like the demon touches all of the people that have that sort of mental illness. Like the father, like he seems to be normal enough, and he doesn't. I mean, he just gets killed by it. He never gets possessed by it. You know what I mean? So
He gets fucking
that's the way I kind of
barbecued.
Alternatively, Peter just took a really fat bong rib and he just ripped out hard.
Josh says that there's definitely a demon, but there's also something inherently off about the mental stability about the family. Paimon might represent. Yeah, I mean, so that's what we were saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there really is a demon, but I think it's what Dan said is that as much as there is a literal demon, the real demon is just this history of mental illness and this fucked up family. Because I mean, this is one of the like most fucked up families on film I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, and they're like not stereotypically like fucked up.
No, it's not like Family Guy.
It's not like a Rob Zombie movie. There's actual like class in the filmmaking here.
But it's very relatable issues with family resentment.
Yeah, it's just people that don't really know how to communicate with each other. It's realistic in that way, and I really enjoyed the family dynamic because of that. It's not like, oh, the dad like beats everyone in the family. Like it's not that obvious. It's like he just doesn't let them discuss their problems between each other well enough in order for them to move on past them as a family. And all of them contribute to the lack of communication in some ways, you know. I love that aspect of it.
And no real discipline either. He gives his orders if he gets frustrated, but then he doesn't do anything. If his children, I don't know, do something bad.
Yeah, he seemed kind of checked out by the time the movie starts. Like the way he like gives the son the suit at the beginning. He's like, "All right, here's your suit. My mother-in-law just died."
I know he should be celebrating. His mother-in-law just died.
Well, what I like with his character progression is just him getting more and more frustrated with his wife.
Yeah.
Especially once their daughter dies and she just keeps continually doing crazy shit.
Yeah.
Like the seance and all this other stuff. And then it's been a couple hours since I watched this, and I've watched The Witch since, so The Witch is like fresher in my mind. Mm-hmm. Did she throw the book in the fire the second time, or did he do it?
No, she throws the book in the fire.
Okay, and then he bursts into flames.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's his breaking point where he's like, "Okay, I can't deal with this anymore. You got to stop."
It's like I've got to intervene at this point, but it's too late.
So,
yeah.
I think my favorite shot, just like for horror though, is the scene in the attic where like you hear this like sawing noise, and you look up and it's the mom like sawing her head off. It's really well executed.
Oh yeah. That's one of the scenes in the movie.
Yeah, definitely with character archetypes. There's also references to Agamemnon and his story, and if anybody knows the mythology around the story, Agamemnon pretty much comes back and to his wife, and his wife is crazy and starts, just killing members of the family. So I think that there's definitely an archetype with the father's character, with inserting him into like the role of Agamemnon. I'm wondering if there are other archetypes here as well. It just requires more research.
Sure. Yeah. I wonder.
Milton has been waiting for this moment.
He's pulling up like proper scripture, like name dropping the Scorpion King over here.
I haven't even referenced scripture yet. We haven't even gone to the witch. Or the Vivitch, I guess, depending on how you want to pronounce it.
I mean, it's clearly the witch. Like
Vivitch. No, it's Vivitch.
Well, I mean, the script of how it was written, like back then, it's like they just put the two V's together, but they were separate. But it's just weird typology kind of things, like way back in the day.
Josh says the dinner scene is one of the best written and acted arguments on film. It's really well done.
Totally agree.
Yeah, it's the scene I was referencing earlier where she yells at the son.
It's like
for not taking responsibility, yeah.
It's like a slow boil because Peter starts the conversation, and it's like you have a feeling where it's going to end up, and then just explodes. It's
and you can tell she's like not in a good state of mind right before that, because that's the scene where she's making like the miniature model of her daughter being decapitated, and the dad comes in and he's like, Jesus Christ.
It's like, come on. It's like, come on, woman, this isn't healthy. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd do in the dad's position, honestly. Like, I kind of understand him just being like, I give up. You people are fucking insane.
He just seems really tired after years of trying to keep a family together with a cracked foundation. Like, like, even before all of this started happening, they would all hang out in their different wings of the house. Like, Annie was in her workshop, he would be in the living room, the kid would be in his room smoking weed, and the daughter would be like in her room drawing. They didn't really spend much time together as a family. And then like when they're at dinner, he doesn't even know, like Peter doesn't, I mean, I know like there's an underlying tension in the scene, but he doesn't really know how to talk to his parents at the dinner. It's very awkward, you know?
Yeah, it goes back to the whole like framing a model. Essentially, you would have like one character in each room of this model house.
Yeah,
they'd all be doing some sort of activity there. So it's very much in the theme of like construction, but isolation at the same time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, though, I like to just imagine instead of her in her room drawing, she's out in the yard just like cutting heads off birds and shit. Like,
oh yeah, because she does do that too.
She does that at school. It apparently gets away with it.
And that's another foreshadowing thing for the beheadings later on in the movie, like the fact that she is constantly like cutting heads off of birds and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and when they're driving to the party before she gets decapitated, you see the pole where it happens, and it has the symbol of the cult on it. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I didn't even.
And the grandmother is wearing it as a necklace at her funeral too, in the open casket. That symbol.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of small details that you just notice on repeat viewings that you don't notice because you're taking it all in. The shock at the events is just consuming your mind, and then
yeah,
it's so detail oriented, and like you'll never pick that up on like a first or probably even a second or third viewing. But just like as you watch it more and more, you start to notice everything.
It's so dense. Cool. Every shot just has so much detail in it.
Exactly.
You are way too excited about that.
Every shot has at least one green screen effect.
Yep.
Oh, it's a marble?
No. You have no idea what we're talking about. It's the Star Wars prequels.
It's like Rick McCallum in an interview, basically. So it's so dense, every shot. And it's like Blanket references it quite a bit.
Yeah.
So we also get a couple of different scenes in this movie of the main kid after his sister's died, like choking, almost like he's having an allergic reaction.
Yeah.
Is that like? I'm assuming that's a parallel with the daughter because she was possessed, and that's how, in a way, she died.
I think so too. Plus, like, you know, like having a weed panic attack. I've heard of people having, you know, those kind of breakdowns, and he hadn't really like emotionally dealt with, at least in his own mind, what had happened yet. So I don't know. I loved that scene. That was a great one too.
I feel I'm very underqualified to talk about this movie. I feel like I need to watch it like 10 more times and like take notes and like write an essay.
And like in point of the film, you would want to watch it more times. It shows how well constructed this movie is, which makes Midsommar all the more disappointing.
Absolutely, yeah. I was really disappointed by that movie because I love Heredtary, and Midsommar's not nearly as good as this.
Like some of what Midsommar does, and you see some similar framing devices and whatnot, but just it doesn't serve a greater whole, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You could just cut giant chunks out of that movie and make it more entertaining.
Yeah, like the uncomfortable sex scene that happened.
Oh, God.
We just watched The Wicker Man, because it's just The Wicker Man, but for 3 hours and with no Nick Cage, so it's like boring.
It's The Wicker Man, but in Sweden. Sweden, right? That's where it is? Or is it Denmark?
It's one of the Scandinavian nations. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
And if there's anywhere that I wouldn't want to be, it's there.
You can't talk. You live in Canada.
It's better than Sweden.
Since you brought it up, I was joking with Milton before you guys hopped in. Is the director of these movies okay? Because like both of these movies are just about like the horrifying death of someone. Like, what did he go through to inspire him to write these two movies?
I don't know. It seems like he's had really bad family dynamics and really bad relationships, maybe.
And like everyone that he knows died in horrific ways.
Yeah.
If that's true, it's a relatable problem, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. That's like the thing that's great about this movie and I guess Midsummer to a lesser degree, but I like this director grounds the horror in like real human things. It's not like, oh, there's a spooky ghost in the house, things go boom. Like the scary thing is about is human nature, really. Like that's what that's what causes all of the conflicts in the film and the reasons why all these characters don't go on the right path. I don't know.
That's like what we talked about with The Shining in that way, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the gradual exposure to these supernatural elements rather than just bringing it out into the fray, outset.
Noah says Alex Wolff is pretty good in this movie, but not as good as his brother is in Death Note. Get out of here, Noah.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think the last thing I really want to bring up before we move on to the next movie is the thing I did kind of find kind of funny is you have that scene where he like goes up in the attic and you have like I assume it's the mother like beating her head on the wall, like the
yeah.
Oh yeah, and the door to
the attic. But then she's somehow instantly like strung up in the attic, cutting her head off.
She's
while she's possessed, yeah. Because
okay.
she also does that, like when she's up in the corner of the room, that shot I mentioned where it's like a close up, and then like they immediately cut to her like on the ground chasing him. So like she moves like really fast and can get around, I guess.
Also, they can fly apparently, as it's shown in like a later scene. But
true too, yeah.
Corpses doesn't even have to climb a ladder to get up; they just float up.
Yeah, well, in which she's cutting her head off, she's flying too.
That's true.
Yeah. I just was wondering because even if she's flying, like, how did she get in there without any kind of noise? But I mean, it's not a huge deal. It's just something I noticed.
By this point, I guess
the scary skeletons did it,
or it's just the cult just has so much power over the house. I guess. Like even reality warps, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely did something in the house because they find a pentagram in the mom's room pretty close to the beginning of the film. So,
yeah.
So, do you guys have any final thoughts about Hereditary before we give our ratings and move
on? My sister does that like cluck thing that the little girl in this movie does.
Oh, no.
So when I first watched it, I was like, no, like put me right into that scene.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I don't like it. Except for
this movie, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it uses that the clucking noise as like a noise to cut between like different flashes of scenes at one point. It's really
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I saw this movie blind, and I was like,
nice.
It blew my mind, yeah.
Yeah, same here. I was very fortunate to not have like a lot of the stuff spoiled, although people definitely tried. I didn't watch this in theaters. I watched it, in a dark room alone.
Yeah, same. That goes for both of these movies, and both of them I started at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and by the end of it, I was like sitting up, being like, "Holy shit! I don't know if I can sleep now."
Yeah, I also got really lucky. I had heard like slight things about the beheading scene with the little girl, but I didn't know enough to know what they were talking about. So I was fortunate not to have this spoiled. And then, of course, The Witch I watched on a whim a couple months ago. Austin was like, "Just watch it already." You like The Lighthouse? Watch his other movie.
All I'll say is, if you're doing drugs, stop it. Get some help.
Yeah, I think this is definitely one of my favorite recent horror movies to come out. This is one of the most memorable. Like I remember Martin Scorsese saying this is like one of his favorite movies to come out in recent years, and I think it deserves kind of all the hype. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really good. Although
Yeah, I
have
think
to say,
this and the two Eggers films were like my three favorite horror films in the last like probably decade, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I
Not
feel
more, yeah.
Yeah, this is like up there with The Exorcist and to a certain extent Rosemary's Baby. And
Rosemary's
some,
Baby is great
yeah,
too.
some
Yeah.
theming too. Yeah.
I need to.
Yeah, I still need to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that both of these are really good, and Lighthouse, of course, as well is awesome. But we're saving that for another video.
Yeah.
It just kind of makes me bummed that the state most horror is in right now. Because occasionally you'll get some good stuff like It Chapter 1, however you feel about that. I mean, it's a pretty good film. Stuff like that, but you don't get things like this that are grounded enough. Like, don't get me wrong, I like the out there schlock stuff, but I like to have like a balance between, like, say your Jason X's and this, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
if we did get more stuff like this, then we would start complaining that it gets samey after a while. But I don't know. It just depends on what you receive.
No, I don't mean this exact kind of movie. I just mean movies of this quality.
Oh well.
Yeah, one of my things is so like so much modern horrors, like the jump scare stuff, like even like It Chapter 1, like I like that movie more for the characters. Like the horror stuff kind of holds it down a bit, but the characters are really good. But like this, it's like Dan said, you get stuff like, oh, the mom's in the corner. If you see it, you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's freaky. The closest you really get to like a proper jump scare is when she then like runs out of the corner. But that only really got me like the first time. The second time I knew it was coming, so I was like, "Oh God! Like here it comes!" Like
Yeah.
I'm freaking out, and then it happened, and I was like, it didn't catch me as much because I knew where she was coming from, so I noticed her earlier in the scene, and I was just like, "Oh God!" So it wasn't even a jump scare at that point, but it was still freaky. And I don't know, more modern horror needs to be like that. Like just having things jump at the camera isn't scary.
Well, yeah,
You, The
forget about like
Conjuring.
why that stuff is scary because it's like you have to build tension and then pay it off with stuff like that. And I feel like what they do in a lot of the like jump scare horror movies I've seen, at least, it's just kind of like here's a spooky thing and it's loud, it's close to the camera.
It's just a natural impulse. If something comes at you very close, your natural reaction is going to be to jump back a bit.
Yeah, it's being startled before you're scared. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because like the movies like that, like the jump scare stuff, I can like go to sleep no problem after like being a little alarmed by a spooky thing coming close to the camera. Like this movie, because it made me like think, is why I was like, oh man, it's gonna take a while to fall asleep for me.
Yeah, no, that's what I had with like this and the Witch, and this is I think more of a traditional like horror film than that is, and like but both of them it was more about the ideas that it presents you with, where it's like, oh my God, like that's horrifying.
Yeah.
How do you make a treehouse in of itself scary? But this film does that. That's
a treehouse of horror. Yeah.
Yeah. It's true.
You just had to work that in some way. He's been waiting like all
He
night.
set me up.
I know.
Where can I
I
make
teed
the
it up for
Simpsons
you.
reference? But yeah, I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5. I like it quite a bit. I would watch this again, but this is one of the movies I very much have to be in the mood for, because it is a little longer than your average horror movie, and it is very slow paced. Nothing wrong with that, of course, but I'd have to be very much in a specific mood to watch this.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Austin.
I'm conflicted. I'm stuck between like a 4.5 and a 5, and I'm not sure which to go for. Yeah, split the difference. I'm gonna go with a 4.75839.
Oh, you're impossible.
What are you guys?
You would watch it again. Yeah. All right, Dan. Out of 5, what do you think?
I would give it a 5. There's not really much I would change about it. I really like the slow pacing. I love all the performances. We talked about Toni Collette the most because she's like the big standout, but I think all the other actors do a really good job. I think the son, especially, is probably the second best performance in the movie. I really liked him in this. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it. If you like psychological, slow-paced, slow-burn, tension-building kind of movies about families that hate each other. Apparently, that's the kind of horror movie I like the most.
Well, it's characters working against each other. It's what stories are all about.
Yeah. They don't necessarily hate each other, but just speaking of families in horror, have you seen like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre films?
I haven't, no.
Oh, okay.
The way that
that's family that mostly works together, but they work together to eat people. It's interesting.
Interesting.
Nobody cares what Milton thinks of this movie. Moving on to The Witch now. What out of 5? What are you going to give it?
0 out of 5, John.
I like how you said that like I would care. Like
not enough Agamemnon.
I'm gonna.
Not enough Christian references.
It's Greek mythology. It's not Christian stuff. Relax. 5 out of 5. Actually, I think Agamemnon might have actually been a real historical figure, but he's been steeped in mythology so much that we're not really sure what accounts are real and which ones are just legends. So.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna. So I don't think I told anybody about this, but I've been keeping track on Letterboxd of all the movies we give a 5 out of 5, and I think since this got 3 out of 4 of us giving it a 5 out of 5, this is gonna go on the list. And the only other film on the list. Do you remember what it is? Do you know what it is, Austin?
It's The Thing.
It is The Thing. This and The Thing are the only 2 movies that have gotten a 5 out of 5 from us. Yeah. Because The Thing is a masterpiece.
Well, that's not gonna be the only thing that gets a 5 out of 5 for me tonight. So
yeah, I don't want to obviously spoil it, but since Austin already kind of let the cat out of the bag, I'm pretty sure I'm going to give this next movie a 5 out of 5.
I think I might do as well. It's a very interesting way of how we kind of reverse the format here, but yeah.
Well, it's all Austin's fault because. So Austin, because. I kind of associate like Robert Eggers movies with you since you're the one that encouraged me to watch The Witch and I think The Lighthouse as well. So like that's just why that my brain works that way.
So I gotta describe it.
Tell us about
The Witch. The Witch is a film by Humpty Dumpty, and it's about a witch. No, it's about a family in I think it's New England, right?
Yep.
And they're kicked out of the colony that they live in, and they're living kind of out by themselves next to a forest where there are some witches, and they're kind of being, I don't know if haunted's the right word, but they're kind of like dealing with some troubles with them. And they also have a goat that's possibly Satan.
Yeah.
That they're all kind of dealing with, and it's like it's a slow burn movie, but I think with this and Hereditary, I never really feel the length because I'm just so drawn into what's happening. Yeah, and just hijinks ensue.
Funny thing about making Austin review it is because Eggers really wanted to film this whole thing in New England, but he had to film it in Canada instead. So.
Oh, okay.
So, Dan, as our
it's because we're not properly colonized yet, so it still looks like the 1600s.
So, Dan, as our resident New Englander, how accurate is this movie?
Well, I think the sort of most accurate thing about it is the portrayal of like the puritanical Christian religious culture in New England at the time. I think the movie is kind of about like faith, religion in many ways, and like also how people are tempted by evil, and how they stray from the path of God and all of those sorts of things. Like, the movie sort of opens with the father being so prideful that he gets his family exiled from the colony because he doesn't want to compromise on his religious beliefs, and he thinks that his faith in the beliefs that got him kicked out of the community will save them, and that it will lead them to salvation and protect them. And none of that happens because they move right next to a witch that lives in the woods. And the son like is constantly checking out his sister. He's got like some lust issues. So I'm not all of the members of the family are very pious and religious, but are sinful at the same time and are constantly begging for forgiveness. And it's kind of like the worst nightmare scenario, like to a person that's that religious, what could possibly happen to them, and that's what I liked about it, in terms of its connection to New England's culture.
Yeah, if you definitely know the history behind the Pilgrims coming in the 1630s, basically you had a lot of the Puritans, which was actually a slur term at the time. It's just you had these people who wanted to separate themselves and just be so holy. Then you had these people that got on the boat because apparently they were trying to portray themselves as more holy than those people. And now we have this character who says, I am the holiest of holy, and no one is holier than I, kind of thing. So it's like where that sort of thing kind of just spirals in of itself and just leads to destruction.
Yeah, and sort of the impulses that the community turned on this family that exiled them is also the thing that destroys the family. Like how they all get suspicious of each other for making a pact with the devil, and I would imagine that's kind of what happened with these people getting kicked out of their community. Like it was heretical religious beliefs, because I think they talk about Jehovah. They may have been Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't know if that is.
I don't think so. They make references to catechism of. I'm not sure if it's like Heidelberg Catechism or whatnot, but they're definitely like very much like the whole Calvinist kind of doctrine.
Yeah, I like how they kind of go into the kind of witch trial thing where like everybody's kind of suspicious of each other. And it's pretty interesting for that time period. I don't know as much about religion, so like most of that stuff goes over my head.
Same here. What I really latched onto this was like the sense of isolation and them slowly turning on each other. A lot of the religious stuff goes over my head because I don't know a lot about that, and also just Anna Taylor-Joy's character's like progression. It's almost kind of like the anti-coming of age story where she goes from a good person to basically signing herself over to the devil. I found that really interesting.
It's definitely a story of maturity, and like I think the themes of the story in terms of her character are interesting because she's stuck in this really oppressive culture where she doesn't really have any choices about her life. Like her parents literally like discuss selling her to another family at one point, and she doesn't really have any kind of control over her own destiny, and like becoming a witch at the end. She's making a pact with the devil, so it's a very evil thing. But the reason why it's interesting is because you can understand why a character would be tempted by that sort of like freedom and liberation that you see her, where she's just kind of naked at the end, being able to do whatever she wants rather than, following her father's directions and doing whatever her family says,
There's
her ripping her clothes off at the end is her like throwing away the society that she left. Yeah,
exactly.
There's definitely an element where Christianity ought to basically be teaching, its community, taking the joy of being part of this and being, released. You don't have to be guilty. But unfortunately, with this puritanical thing of the day, they really want to emphasize guilt and just the fact that we are depraved people. Just being in that situation, the alternative is you want to go to this other thing that, advertises the sort of comfort, living deliciously. It's no wonder why she wants to, pursue something that doesn't make her feel guilty all the time and make her feel like she's worthless.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's I think some of the best stuff in the movie, and as well as just the attention to detail, kind of like Hereditary. This movie has an insane attention to detail. even if sometimes it annoys me because there are times where I can't tell what a character's saying.
Yeah, I
Sometimes
always watch this movie with subtitles on.
I had to as well, but I have that with both of his films, especially The Lighthouse. When those two start going on, I can't tell what they're saying.
I've read old English stuff. It gets difficult because sometimes the text just it gets so wordy, and the typology is very different from like what we understand the English language to be.
Yeah, I love that they didn't modernize the dialogue.
I do too. I just at times it's like, what are you saying?
It's like,
is it that, or is it the fact that the father's voice is like this?
It might also be partly the father's accent, but I will say, so I think Anna Taylor-Joy.
His voice is so cool.
It is. It's so cool. Anna Taylor-Joy might be the best actor / actress in this film, but I think the dad is my favorite just because, like Austin said, his voice is so cool and like he just has this presence about him. I like that actor a lot. I don't know what else he's been in, but
Anna Taylor-Joy was the first audition for this movie, like the very first thing that happened. It's quite a lucky strike on Egger's part.
Interesting. Yeah, she's really good in this. I think all the performances are really good. Like even the younger brother, like one of the creepiest scenes in this entire movie is when he's kind of like dying and there's like a demon inside him and he thinks it's Jesus and he's like the warm embrace and he talks to Jesus like he's having kissing it like he did with the witch in the woods, so that they're like referencing that kind of stuff, and then like the apple comes out of his mouth and he's dead. That stuff was riveting to me. His performance was great, and I really liked the mom too because she's very like bitter and greedy. That's kind of like the sin that damns her soul, because she's so concerned about this like silver cup that her dad passed down to her. She's like, "Where's my cup?" And everyone's like,
"Yeah." So, if you ever wanted like religious symbolism, the apple, a lot of what the reasons why we look at the apple as like that's the fruit of the tree of the garden. Good and evil is because it was kind of cemented as this idea back then. We don't actually know what the fruit was. The Bible never actually says what it is, but it
in Christian mythology, the devil also appears frequently as a black goat. So like when I saw that at the farm, I was like, oh, okay.
Black goat.
This has one of my favorite movie posters too, where at least the one that I used for the thumbnail is just like a black background and like the head, like the top half of the head of the goat.
Yeah,
and it's just really foreboding. But real quick, Noah says both movies get a 9 out of 10 from him, which I can agree with that. And he also says that the dad is in the UK version of The Office, and he thought it was funny to see him in this movie. I've never seen the UK version because I don't like the American version, so I just like, So that's interesting.
Huh.
I wouldn't want to work with this guy at an office.
Apparently,
I just imagine him lumbering around, like yelling about the word of God and praying.
Yeah, the commitment to like using an actual animal on set is also quite laudable, considering apparently in the behind the scenes, like Blackfield was like notoriously difficult to film with.
Oh,
really?
I didn't. Yeah. I watched this on Showtime because I got really lucky, and this and Hereditary were both on Showtime, since I don't own either one of them yet. So there was no like behind the scenes for me to watch or anything.
My granddad is a veterinarian and has a farm. And as a kid, I always asked him to get a goat, and he was like, "No, goats are assholes that do what they want."
They are. I've actually had encounters with them, and some of them are nice and docile, but the male goats especially, they're very aggressive.
Encounters.
And they're apparently very bad for like just smashing you on the ass with their horns while you're like trying to bend over and stuff.
Well, see, Austin, this movie was very, very attention to detail oriented. When that goat stabs the actor, he actually stabbed him, and like they just managed to catch that film.
Well, that's why it like doesn't fully catch it, because it's like a close up of him, and like you can maybe just see the kind of the horns come in from the side. That must be why.
I think the breed for Blackfield is like the old Irish goat. I think that's what the breed is actually called, or something like that.
But to bring it back for just a second to what Dan was talking about with the apple, I didn't realize that was an apple that he had coughed up at first because it's kind of hard to tell. But it's interesting that it is, because if I remember correctly, there's an entire like speech that one of the characters has about like missing apples because there's like they can't find apples anymore.
The son actually says it. He tells the mom a lie about how him and the dad like went out in the woods while they were going to like hunt and like sell the cup, and he told him the story about all that stuff. So it's basically like, you know, his sin was lying to his mother, and he coughs it up. You know.
There's also a double sin as well of, I mean, sex was often said back then of being called like knowledge or carnal knowledge or knowing.
Yeah.
So the idea of like, you know, knowledge of good and evil spits out the apple, shows that there's a bite in it.
And we presume like right before that he probably had some sort of weird sex ritual thing with the witch in the woods.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that there's more than one at this point because as I found in the wiki, the baby solution is apparently just for flying. It's not actually for youth or something like that.
Yeah, yes, they like churn them into like butter or something, I think, right? And that like allows them to fly.
Yeah. Because like she puts it on herself, and then you see like her on the floor of the cave, I think, with like I think it was a broomstick or something, but then she like there's a shot of like that old witch, and like they show like the moon, and it's like, oh, she's gonna go flying now after she has all the blood all over her.
Yeah, both these movies really commit to ugly nakedness.
Yeah.
That's the real reason Austin put these two together. But we mentioned I think at the beginning of the show that both of these movies deal with like really shitty parents. I think these two take the award for the night for shitty parents. At least to poor Anna Taylor-Joy's character, because like they both assault her at least once in the film.
Yeah.
And the dad comes off as a crazy person, like insisting that she's the witch and to tell him that she is, so that they can repent. And she's like, "But I'm not." And he's like, "No, you must tell me."
There's like a whole thing of like older siblings getting like a lot of responsibility just thrust upon them, especially when they have a lot of younger siblings. Yeah, there's definitely an element of that with just undue responsibility and like undue expectations.
Yeah, but I mean, with this specifically, though, a big chunk of that is it's set up early in the film, like she's messing with one of her younger siblings, and it's like, you know, I'm the witch of the woods, and then the younger sister just blabs it out. I think to take attention off herself, but I could be wrong.
Those twins are terrible people, though. Highly spoiled.
They're all terrible people. I mean, let's be honest.
They in particular are really annoying. It's no wonder why Anna Taylor-Joy just snaps at them, considering they're taunting her for like the death of their younger brother.
Well, and it's interesting too. Like, I agree with you that they are like shitty parents, but I think one of the interesting things about this film and why I like it is that even though it has all the supernatural stuff in it, it's pretty realistic in the sense that like living by yourself in colonial times in the woods would be really hard work, and like you'd if things go wrong, it goes really bad really quickly. Like their crops don't grow, and all those, you know, he's not able to catch anything while hunting to eat. People are getting sick, and they don't really have any help, you know. It's like the choices they have to make are shitty, but like, for example, when they were like making the choice to whether or not they should sell their daughter, like, you know, as a wife or a servant or whatever, I don't know exactly what the implication was, but to have her go care for another family, like their idea was, well, either she goes or we starve. You know, those are the choices they have to make.
Yeah, I mean, I assumed it was for marriage because they have,
that's
like,
what I thought
the whole
too.
Reason that they're talking about that is because she's become of a certain age.
Yeah, they say she's like becoming a woman and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's a certain element of that was definitely present in that culture. I mean, we had Jamestown that was already established like quite before, you know, Pilgrim's Rock and all that.
Yeah,
then the first two attempts, the casualties were enormous.
Oh yeah, plagues and wars with the Indians and stuff. But
yeah, I mean, like all of these people in reality are shitty people to at least a certain extent. But like,
absolutely,
you understand why, and it's, you know, very much of it's a thing of just the times that these characters live in. My favorite is when the mom just like gives up at the end and just starts freaking out and trying to kill Anna Taylor-Joy.
Yeah,
he seduced my husband and your brother.
Like what?
Yep. I do like the whole sad thing of where like the father's like pushed back into the pile of wood because that's like the only thing that he's good for, and that essentially becomes his grave.
Yeah, as soon as that guy started chopping wood like the dad from the Amityville Horror, I was like, oh, I know where this is going.
Oh yeah, and it shocked me the first time when he gets gored by the by Black Phillip. Like it just like comes out of nowhere. It's like holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, up until that point, they're pretty like ambiguous on if this is actually the devil or if it's just like a goat that's kind of an asshole. I think.
Well, I kind of saw it as ambiguous throughout the film until obviously the end, where the first time I watched it, it was like 5:30 in the morning at that point, and just like all the hairs on my back stood up, and I was like, "Oh my god, holy shit!" When he starts talking.
Although Austin, you know what I couldn't stop thinking about this time when I was watching it because I knew that the goat was like evil. Drag Me to Hell. I couldn't stop thinking about the talking goat scene.
I love the touch of just the devil becomes a nobleman, because in a lot of the literature of the time and illustrations, the devil was shown to be this charming gentleman sometimes.
Yeah. It's kind of like the Dracula thing too, right? Like, you know, because he seduces her with promises of like living deliciously, like being able to have luxuries like butter that she didn't. I mean, they were just eating bread out in, you know, this shack in the woods because of their dad, you know. Like he like tempts her with the finer things in life. That's what he kind of promises her. So I agree with you. It makes a lot of sense that he appears as someone that has all of those sorts of things as a demonstration to her, like, this is what I offer. You know,
and I kept looking at the credits to see who was the actor who portrayed the nobleman, you know, in body, but for whatever reason, he's not credited inside the actual movie.
Oh, that's awesome! That reminds me of like the old Universal horror films where you get like a question mark instead of an actor's name for the monster.
Yeah, I did eventually find it, but I forgot. So, you know, do your own research, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's based off of Pan. Right, like the demon goat creature.
Kind of.
I could see that bringing in a little Greek mythology.
A lot of like Christian, you know, stuff like that, especially of the day, was like heavily informed by like the Renaissance period happened, and so we had a lot of resurgence of like Greco-Roman and adjacent stuff coming in to inform like these are the devils. They're represented by these ancient gods or demons or whatnot. So there's a bit of that. It could be Pan.
We all know the moral of this movie. The moral of this movie is that people back in the old days were stupid, and they got what they deserved.
And people today.
No, the moral is don't trust twins. Twins are inherently evil.
No, people are still just as stupid today as they were back then, just in different ways.
But yeah, and this is also I got lucky and like I didn't know anything about this movie. I remember seeing like advertisements when it came out because this and some other movie but I never got around to it. Then just me and Austin were chatting in the Discord, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna put this on. Like, I love The Lighthouse. I should finally just buckle down and do this. So I was like, okay, is something gonna happen at some point? And then the scene with the kid where like spits up the apple. Do you remember this, Austin? The scene with the apple happens. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm in. And by the end of the movie, I was like, okay, like this is good. I like The Lighthouse a little bit better, but this is also fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know if I can choose. After watching it again, like I love this movie just as much as The Lighthouse, I think. I used to say The Lighthouse before, but I don't know, there's some like new things I noticed like going on in this movie when I watch it again. Like it happens with all of this type of film, and I was like, wow. Yeah.
We wouldn't have gone The Lighthouse without this movie.
That's funny. I had the kind of opposite reaction where I was always like, The Lighthouse is really good, but The Witch is way better. And I don't know, I had a really good rewatch of The Lighthouse recently. And I'm like, they're like neck and neck.
Yeah, that's
I can't decide. They're really hard.
You guys just need to eat William Dafoe's lobster some more.
Well, for me, with that one, because when I saw it in the theater, I was like, this is really good, but like The Witch is better. And then COVID happened, and I was kind of like stuck at my mom's for several months and couldn't leave or anything, like couldn't really go out anywhere. And I rewatched it and I was like, holy shit, this is like a masterpiece.
Yeah.
This is me right now.
Isolation, yeah.
Yeah, I love movies just about like being isolated somewhere. And
Yeah.
for me with Lighthouse, it edges out a little bit, but that's mostly just because like Willem Dafoe is batshit crazy in that movie. So when I say I prefer Lighthouse just on a pure like entertainment level, that movie is, I think, just much crazier than this one is to a point.
Well, that's the thing with this too, is when I saw it, I also saw it blind, and the big thing I heard was this movie's kind of boring. And then, like I said, I watched it at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I was already tired when I put it on. I was like wide awake the entire time. I was so drawn into this film, and I was like, "Who says this is boring? This movie's awesome."
Yeah, people that are used to the spooky go bang stuff, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's not Annabelle 6.
And admittedly, this, like, I don't watch many movies like this. Like, I've said many times, I prefer the trashier, like, stupid films. But once in a while, I'll find something like this where I can really like appreciate the nuance to it. So it took me a while to get into it, but once I did, I was hooked.
It's a very traditionally produced film, which is refreshing by today's standards, where like a lot of stuff is very controlled and a lot of set designs, like a green screen, stuff like that. But this is a very practically shot film with a lot of.
Well, there's an art to the editing of this film too, like the scene where the baby disappears, where they're playing peekaboo, is so atmospheric, and like when you actually like stop and think about the scene, like there's nothing like super scary happening until obviously the baby disappears, but just the editing is so good that it just like it makes it so eerie.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I love the scene where you just see, it's so creepy. You just see it's like a shot from like right behind the baby's head, like level with it, and you see the witch's like hand just going over the baby, like touching it on the face and on its chest and stuff, and then it just immediately cuts to her mashing it up in like in one of those, like, I forget what they're called, a butter churner kind of thing. Yeah. It's not exactly that, but it's like a similar kind of idea, and you're like, oh my god.
It's like a more pestle kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some real horrifying imagery just in general, like that shot with the mom where there's like the crow pecking away at her breast.
Yeah.
Like, it's freaky.
And the other thing I appreciate about this movie is it's also only like an hour and a half. Because like with horror movies, like I prefer a horror movie that's roughly around an hour and a half. There are some exceptions, like Dr. Sleep or The Shining even. But I find most movies have a good sense of pacing and like get their story told effectively at that hour and a half mark.
Yeah.
And he really knows how to use that hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So do you guys theory crafting time?
Oh no.
Do you guys think that the family had a connection with, or any of them had a connection with like the devil or this witch before they went out there?
I'm going to say no, and I think that works to the theming. The reason why is because I think the devil is more interested in targeting what's already there with what we're not conscious of or just don't want to accept about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's more present. I do think that there's a thing of the undisciplined twins, like unwittingly, essentially creating a pact with Black Phillip just by singing his songs and by hanging out with him all the time. And I think that's a background thing that develops.
I think it's possible because by the time we first introduced Black Phillip, the twins are already really familiar with him.
So yeah, and they brought the goat out there with them, right?
Yeah. So I'm thinking the twins had formed this pact or bond or whatever before they left, but it doesn't. The goat waits to act on it until they're out and on their own.
Well, that could be like part of how they got kicked out of their colony too.
Yeah.
Just unknowingly to them at the moment.
Yeah, I mean that's entirely possible.
I guess the father thought it was about religion, but in reality, it was just an old Irish goat.
We need the Vivitch, the beginning, the prequel film about how they got kicked out.
So you gotta wonder, right? Like, my thought was something like, they were exiled out there. They just happened to come upon this like place with a witch. Like, does the community like every once in a while just exile people out there so the witch will leave them alone? I don't know.
Well, I think they chose the location in of itself. I think it's the
Yeah.
idea of you can't escape from fate if you're a damned
Well-
character, or if you damn yourself, essentially fate will consume you,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's pride before the fall, right? None of this
Yeah.
would have happened if the father hadn't been so prideful and
Yeah.
left the community.
He
Which,
was very
like, everything with the characters is really interesting. Like I mentioned, some of the religious stuff goes over my head because, just to be honest, I don't really care. But I find all the character stuff interesting, and the kind of like anti coming of age carries the film for me, as well as
'Cause they
just
all have-
paranoia.
Yeah, they all have individual contributions to make as to why everything any single person's fault entirely. Like, it's like, oh, like the dad got them exiled, but like if the older daughter had not taken the baby out there, if the son hadn't taken off into the woods with his sister by themselves, if the twins hadn't talked to Black, you know what I mean? Like, they're all sort of like making bad choices that lead to the collapse of everything.
and everybody's obsessed with appearances. The father
Yeah.
especially takes the gold cup on that because he doesn't even want to admit his own faults in front of his children or even in front of his wife.
Mhm.
He's trying to-
it's part of his pride, yeah.
When he's like screaming at the sky while she's like watching him through the gate that they nailed her up in the pen, and he's like, "I have not damned my family."
Save my children, please.
And the
But he
dad
acknowledges
is so
his own
good in
fault.
this movie. I'd
There's
like
al-
to see other stuff that he's in. Not The Office, mind you, but I'd like to see if he's in any other stuff that looks.
There's also an element of like lack of scripture, certainly that's like referenced throughout the movie. Like apparently, like no one can remember actual scripture throughout it. When the dad calls for it, they don't even want to like reference the Bible at all. All that they reference towards their theology is like catechism. It's only really until right before the father is killed by Black Phillip in the woodpile that he actually references the book of Job, like directly, and actually quotes
Yeah.
scripture. That's the only time, as far as I remember, when it's actually ever said.
The thing with Job comes up multiple times too, because when the wife says it at one point, she says, "I don't want to be the wife of Job to you."
Yeah.
Um,
But I don't want to curse God, but it's certainly a significant thing of like the almost rejection of puritanical belief. By saying we should have just stayed in England. We should never have sought to disassociate ourselves from other Christians or like the rest of the world.
yeah. It's sort of an exploration of what blind religious zealotry can do to you, Turns people into crazies.
Yeah, it was the stuff that I really liked with like just the suspicion of like which kid is the witch with the family, and it all makes them like turn on each other.
Yeah, the dad's just like ready to kill all the kids too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the part where he picks up the one twin and starts shaking them.
Yeah.
I thought he was the first time I watched this for a second there. I thought he was gonna kill Anna Taylor-Joy when he's like out in the yard with her. And I'm like, dude, you need to chill out. And then like 5 minutes later, her mom has her like on the ground, is like shaking her head into the dirt.
Well, he essentially like leaves them for dead just by shutting them up with this allegedly cursed goat. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like he's a back and forth character where he himself doesn't understand what he's doing.
It's time for you to go in the timeout area with the dead.
But yeah,
But
I'm discovering more and more that I just like movies where people turn on each other, like fall apart due to paranoia.
Oh yeah, Dan, you know what else religious zealotry leads to?
What?
In 10 years, the English Civil War happens and the Puritans take over the government.
Foreigner is Israelite. Hi, welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping by. I haven't seen that name before. Always good to see a new person in the chat.
Oh yeah.
And a foreigner at that.
Says the foreigner.
I'm not foreign in this land, though.
You're
From my
outnumbered
point of
3 to
view,
1.
you're all foreigners.
In the land of the internet, we are all foreign.
Austin. Well, actually, since you introduced the movie, talked about the movie at the start. Milton, final thoughts / rating.
Final thoughts? Oh yeah. Concerning technical design, it's really cool that from my home state of Virginia, they bring in a guy to actually build these sets because he has experience in like Jamestown architecture and all that. So
That's cool.
the attention to detail is really spot on with like the thatch roof, like construction and the inner workings. This is stuff that people could actually make. And it brings into this idea of the father had to draw from the forest in order to actually make a home, which is an element that I think a lot of people can miss out on, just taking a set for granted. He had to chop down trees from the forest, and the foundation was corrupt from the start.
Yeah, for sure.
And your rating?
5 out of 5. And I don't want to be so cavalier with these like perfect ratings, but this is a really good movie. And
I don't know if
people
we
watch
can be
it.
cavalier when you've given 3 movies a 5 out of 5.
After saying you would never give a film a 5 out of 5 because no film deserves a perfect rating.
Well, I have changed. You all have changed.
You've seen the light, yeah. We have both this film and Hereditary. There's like nothing to change about them. Like they're just kind of perfect. And we don't get a lot of perfect films these days. It's breath of fresh air.
See, with Milton, you got to remember that he's now sat through Underworld, and that changes the person. Makes you realize that there's a 1 out of 5 film out there, so there must be a 5 out of 5.
Wouldn't give Underworld too much credit for anything, honestly.
But anyway, I mean, we already kind of gave away how we feel about this movie, but I figured just for professionalism. Dan, go ahead and final thoughts and 5 out of 5.
Yeah. So I really, really like this movie. I think it executes all of the thematic ideas it wants to play with masterfully. I think the choice to make the dialogue accurate to the period was really interesting. That was one of the things I found the most interesting about it the first time I watched it. I think it adds a lot to the sort of the religious stuff that it wants to go over, because it sounds like people that would realistically believe in all the things they believe in, and they're dealing with problems that those people from the time are dealing with. So I liked that authenticity a lot. I think it brings a lot of gravity to the film. And yeah, other than that, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 because it's great. You should watch it.
I am also going to give it a 5 out of 5. I think there's a little something here for everyone, whether you come from someone, for instance, like Milton's background. He's very well versed in the religious aspects of this film and things like that. Or someone like me, who is more interested in just the base character stuff, like the isolation and the paranoia and the sort of coming of age story with Anna Taylor-Joy's character. So I'm going to give that a 5 out of 5 as well. And then the Canuck over here.
5 out of 5. I can't wait for the Northman this year. That's going to be great.
Yeah, Dan and I were talking about that a little bit while we were waiting for you.
Yeah.
I forgot that comes out this year, though.
Yeah, and Anya Taylor-Joy's in that, too.
Oh, is she really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's coming back, and Willem Dafoe's in it, too. So he's bringing in like a few people he's worked with, yeah.
So cool.
It's like he's becoming Quentin Tarantino with like retaining actors for his projects. It's really cool.
Well, and I really hope he eventually gets to make his Nosferatu remake, because he signed on for that like after The Witch came out, and I think it's just kind of like been pushed back. But I really hope he's able to make that. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
I need to see the other stuff that Anya Taylor-Joy has been in, because she also did
New Mutants.
Yeah, the best movie ever made.
But no, she was also, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, she was also in a movie that portrayed Queen Victoria? No, not Queen Victoria.
Queen's Gambit?
No, it's...
You talking about Emma?
No, that's Jane Austen, man.
I don't know anything about
Yeah,
Jane Austen.
nobody knows what you're talking about. Well, while he's doing that, at the end of the show, we usually announce what we're going to do next week to give people kind of an idea. But I have two different options that I'm thinking of doing. Obviously, after this week, we'll be moving to either a Friday night or Saturday afternoon streaming schedule, depending on availability for both Austin and Milton. And of course, Dan, whenever he wants to give us essays on whatever movie we're doing.
Absolutely.
So before we pick, Austin, would you be available not this Saturday but next Saturday?
I don't know. I'd have to look into it. Maybe.
Because if you are, I would like to do Hellraiser and Nightmare on Elm Street. But I don't want to do those without you because you love both of those movies.
Yeah, I can look into it to see if I can show up.
Okay, so what we're going to do then, since he's non-committal...
I was just asked on the spot. I don't know.
Milton, go ahead and pull up the wheel. When it's just me and Milton, we just spin a wheel that has all the movie choices that Austin put together. And it just kind of decides what we're gonna watch.
Yeah, you're gonna see this horror show. Yeah.
Oh God, it hasn't been kind to us.
All right, let me just
Bird
make
Box
sure
fucking sucked.
Let me just make sure that I took off.
I mean, there's a lot of good movies in the stuff I put together, so
there is. We just keep getting shitty options.
Yeah. Okay, I think it's fine. All right, I will share it. All right.
Let's see. Where's like big money, no whammies?
Mm-hmm.
Waiting for
you all see it yet?
No.
I don't know what's wrong with the thing.
Yeah, I got two purple squares.
Yeah, so
hang on. Let me try a different way.
This show.
There we go. Let's try this.
Dan, I promise we're usually more professional. There we go.
Okay.
Dan's been on twice. He knows. He knows better than your lies.
So, is that close enough? Can people see?
Yeah, we can see it.
All right. Let's. Oh. You'll still see it?
Yeah, but I have to like go in close to see it.
The Hunt is ready or not? Okay, I'm okay with that. Those are pretty solid movies.
Alrighty then.
I mean, one is.
Which one do you like? I'm not sure, honestly.
Ready or Not's pretty all right.
Yeah, I like that movie quite a bit. The Hunt wasn't bad. I mean, it's a little dumb at times, but it was entertaining for an hour and a half.
It's your first Blumhouse film, Milton. Good luck.
No, it's not. What did we do? We did a Blumhouse film a couple weeks ago. Is it? Hang on, I gotta look this up. He's been giving me shit ever since we started the show because I don't hate Blumhouse movies.
Oh,
it's not because you don't hate them, it's because you love them.
I don't love them, I just enjoy them, whether they're
You suck their dick more than Sony's.
Fuck off.
He's cautiously optimistic about the Blumhouse
I hate
thing.
What did we do?
No, I mean, hopefully I'll get a better opinion of Blumhouse with the more good stuff that's been released. I just haven't taken the time yet.
Yeah, like the Halloween and Invisible Man, and then... Yep. Those movies were good.
Or Ready or Not.
Like 2 out of the 900 films they put out in the last 4 years.
But yeah. Well, thank you for coming on the show, Dan. We really appreciate
I don't know. I must be
it's a blast.
But yeah, Dan, thank you for stopping by. We will announce on Twitter when Austin decides if he's going to show up or not.
Well, if he's available, we need to be forgiving to the Knuckles here.
I
mean, I don't care if he shows up or not. I'm going to give him a hard time, but I understand this.
You have to put up with.
Do you see what I have to put up with?
What, bullying me?
But anyway, Dan, if any of the movies that we're ever talking about interest you outside of the ones that we've already talked about, you're more than welcome. We will be back next Friday or Saturday, depending, with one of the 2 out of the 4 movies that we picked here tonight. I was thinking Austin would be available, so I didn't really have a backup plan, but it's fine. But yeah, thank you guys, and we will talk at you next week.